The developers are coming at 10. I need you to stay in the backfield while they're
It's
here.
my family's farm, Marcus.
I know that, but Eleanor handles the business side now. You know that upsets you. I don't want you getting emotional in front of these people.
The old red truck moved slowly down the dirt road that cut through the middle of the Blackwood farm. In the passenger seat, Clara Blackwood sat with her hands folded in her lap, looking out at the fields she had grown up in. Clara was
we need to
34 years old. She was wearing an old pair of overalls that had a small tear near the left knee. Her work boots were muddy. Her hair was pulled back under a faded blue bandana. She looked like someone who had been working since before the sun came up. Because she had been. She looked like a woman who belonged here. Like the land knew her name. But nobody treated her that way anymore. In the driver's seat, her husband Marcus sat with one hand on the wheel and one hand resting on the window. Marcus was tall and handsome with a clean fade and a pressed white shirt even though it was only 7 in the morning. He always looked sharp. Always looked put together. Like he was on his way somewhere important. He usually was. Just not somewhere Clara was invited. The developers are coming at 10, Marcus said without looking at her. I need you to stay in the back field while they're here. Clara turned to look at him. This is my family's farm, Marcus. I know that, he said. But Eleanor handles the business side now. You know that upsets you. I don't want you getting emotional in front of these people. Clara said nothing. She turned back to the window. Out in the field, old Joe Washington was already working. He was in his 70s with white hair and a bent back, but he moved through the rows of crops like a man half his age. He had worked this land for 30 years. He worked for Clara's father before her. As the truck passed, Joe looked up. He saw Clara in the window. He nodded once, slow and steady, the way a man nods when he wants to say something he can't say out loud. Clara nodded back. Everyone here knows this land is yours, Miss Clara. That was what Joe had told her 3 weeks ago, quietly, while they were fixing the fence near the south field. Your dad built every post on this property with his own 2 hands. Don't you forget that. She hadn't forgotten. But forgetting and doing something about it were 2 different things. The truck stopped in front of the farmhouse. It was a big white house with a wide porch and tall oak trees on both sides. Clara's grandmother had planted those trees. Her grandfather had built that porch. Her father had painted it every spring for as long as Clara could remember. Now Eleanor was standing on it. Eleanor Voss had been married to Clara's father for 4 years before he died. She was in her mid-50s with smooth skin and expensive clothes that looked wrong on a farm. She was holding a coffee mug and talking on her phone like she owned the place. Because she thought she did. When she saw the truck, she waved at Marcus with a big smile. She didn't look at Clara at all. Marcus got out of the truck and walked toward the porch. Developer's call? He asked Eleanor. On their way, Eleanor said. The offer is looking very good. Clara got out of the truck slowly. She looked up at the house. At the oak trees. At the porch her grandfather built. Then she picked up her work gloves from the truck bed and walked toward the back field. She didn't say a word. That night Clara couldn't sleep. She lay on her side of the bed staring at the ceiling while Marcus slept beside her. He slept easy. He always slept easy. Like a man with no weight on his chest. Clara had weight enough for both of them. She thought about the developers. The way Eleanor had smiled at Marcus. And neither one of them had looked at her all day. Not once. She thought about her father. James Blackwood had died 8 months ago. A quiet man with big hands and a deep laugh. He had built this farm from almost nothing. 200 acres of Georgia red clay that he had turned into something real and valuable. The kind of land that developers paid millions for now. He had always said the farm would go to Clara. Always. But when the will was read, everything had gone to Eleanor. Clara had sat in the lawyer's office that day feeling like the floor had dropped out from under her. The lawyer had read the words slowly and carefully. The entirety of the Blackwood estate, including all land, property, and assets, is left to Eleanor and Voss Blackwood. Clara had looked at Marcus. Marcus had reached over and squeezed her hand. I'm so sorry, baby, he had whispered. Your daddy must have changed his mind near the end. We just have to accept it. She had believed him. She had believed everything Marcus told her. Now she lay in the dark and thought about that and felt something heavy and cold sitting in her chest. Clara got up quietly. She pulled on her jeans and her boots, then picked up her flashlight from the nightstand, and walked out into the night. The north barn was at the far end of the property, past the pecan trees and down a little slope toward the creek. Marcus had told her it was unsafe. He had put a padlock on the door 6 months ago and told her the structure was rotting. Clara had always wondered about that. Her father had loved that barn. He kept his old equipment in there. His tools. The things that mattered to him. She reached into the pocket of her jeans and felt the small brass key. She had found it 2 days ago, tucked inside the carved wooden horse her father had kept above the mudroom door for 30 years. The same hiding spot he had used her whole childhood. She had held that key in her hand and said nothing to anyone. She walked down to the barn now in the dark. The Georgia night was warm and thick with the sound of crickets. The flashlight cut a pale beam across the dirt path. She reached the barn door and put the key in the padlock. Click. It opened. She pushed the door and stepped inside. The barn smelled like motor oil and old wood and her father. She stood still for a moment, just breathing it in. There were his tools hanging on the wall the way he always kept them. There was his old tractor with the cracked seat he kept saying he was going to replace. There was the workbench where he used to sit and drink his coffee on Sunday mornings. Clara's throat felt tight. She moved the flashlight slowly around the space. Everything was dusty but organized, the way her father always kept things. Then she saw the boots. They were on the shelf above the workbench. A pair of old brown work boots, worn down at the heels. She had seen her father wear those boots her entire life. He called them his thinking boots. He said he did his best thinking when he was wearing them. She walked over and picked up the left one. It was heavier than it should have been. She reached inside. Her fingers touched something hard and rectangular. She pulled it out. A VHS tape. Old. The black plastic dusty and yellowed. There was a piece of white tape on the side with her father's handwriting. For Clara. Only Clara. Her hand started shaking. She reached into the boot again. Paper. Folded many times, soft from being folded and refolded. She opened it carefully in the beam of the flashlight. It was a letter. Her father's handwriting. Big and careful like he always wrote when something mattered. My Clara, if you are reading this, then something has gone wrong. I am not a man who believes in signs, but I had a feeling about this, so I am writing it down. I changed my will 3 months ago. I left everything to you. The farm, the land, all of it. The way it was always supposed to be. But last week I came home early from the doctor, and I heard Marcus on the phone in the kitchen. He didn't know I was there. He was talking to Eleanor. He said the new will was a problem. He said they needed to handle it before I got worse. I don't know what that means. I don't know what they are planning. But I am scared, baby girl. I am scared, and I am not well enough to fight. Everything you need to know is on that tape. I recorded it 3 weeks ago when I still had the strength to talk clearly. I was going to give it to the lawyer, but I didn't know who to trust anymore. I trust you. I always trusted you. The tape is the truth. Don't let them take what is yours. I love you more than this land, and I love this land more than anything. Dad. Clara read the letter twice. Then she stood in the dark barn holding her father's words against her chest, and she did not make a single sound. She stood there for a long time. Then she folded the letter carefully and put it in the pocket over her heart. She wrapped the tape in the old handkerchief hanging on her father's workbench, the blue one with his initials, and she put it in her other pocket. She walked back to the farmhouse in the dark, climbed back into bed beside Marcus. He was still sleeping. She stared at the ceiling until morning came, but said nothing. The next morning Clara drove herself into town. She told Marcus she needed groceries. He nodded without looking up from his phone. She drove past the grocery store. She parked on Elm Street in front of a small office with a glass door. Patterson and Associates, Family Law. Her father had used Robert Patterson for 30 years. She had heard her father say once that Robert was the only lawyer in the county he fully trusted. She went inside. An hour later, she came out with a manila envelope in her bag. She had not opened it yet, but she knew what was inside. Divorce papers. Signed and ready. Paid for from a savings account she had opened 2 years ago in her own name at a bank in the next town. Her father had pressed the money into her hand one Christmas, $500 in an envelope, and said, "This is yours alone, baby girl. Keep it somewhere Marcus doesn't know about." She had thought he was being dramatic, but she understood now. Clara drove to the grocery store. She bought milk and bread and eggs and drove back home. She unloaded the groceries, smiled at Marcus over dinner, and said nothing. The next day Clara drove to see Mr. Earl Miller. Earl Miller was 78 years old and retired. He had been a notary public for 40 years in Fulton County. He had notarized every legal document the Blackwood family had ever signed, including Clara's parents' marriage certificate and the original deed to the farm. He lived alone now in a small yellow house on the edge of town with a vegetable garden out front and an old dog sleeping on the porch. Clara knocked on the door. When Earl opened it and saw her, his face did something complicated. He looked happy to see her and scared at the same time. "Clara," he said, "I heard about your daddy. I'm real sorry." "Thank you, Mr. Earl," Clara said. "Can I come in?" He stepped back slowly. She came inside and sat at his kitchen table. He sat across from her. The old dog came in and put its head on Clara's knee. Clara put her father's letter on the table between them. Earl looked at it but didn't touch it. "I know why you're here," he said quietly. "Then you know what I need to ask you," Clara said. Earl was quiet for a long time. He looked out the kitchen window at his garden. "They came to see me," he said finally. "Marcus and Eleanor. About 2 weeks before your daddy passed. They brought a document. Said it was a new will your daddy had drawn up privately. Said he was too sick to come in himself." He paused. "They asked me to notarize it." Clara kept her face still. "Did you?" Earl's jaw tightened. "I did. God help me, I did. Marcus said your daddy had asked him to handle it. Said you knew about it. Said it was all agreed upon." He finally looked at her. "I should have called your daddy myself to verify. I've known better my whole career. But Marcus was persuasive and your daddy was sick and He stopped. "I made a mistake, Clara. A bad one." Clara nodded slowly. "I need you to fix it, Mr. Earl." He looked at the letter again. "I could lose everything. My reputation. What's left of it?" "My father built this farm for 50 years, Clara said softly. "He built it for me. They forged his signature on a document you notarized. That means you have a responsibility." The kitchen was quiet except for the sound of the dog breathing. Earl reached out and picked up the letter. He read it slowly. When he put it down, his eyes were wet. "Your daddy was a good man," he said. "One of the best I ever knew." "Yes, sir," Clara said. "He was." Earl nodded once. "I'll come forward. Whatever you need me to say, wherever you need me to say it. I'll tell the truth." Clara reached across the table and put her hand over his. "Thank you, Mr. Earl," she said. That night, Clara found the old VCR. It was in the attic in a box labeled James, keep in her father's handwriting. She carried it down to the barn and set it up on the workbench. It took her 2 evenings to clean it and get it working properly. On the 3rd night, she connected it to the small television her father had kept in the barn for watching games during harvest season. She turned it on. Put in the tape. The screen went to static for a moment. Then the picture settled. Her father appeared. He was sitting at the kitchen table in the farmhouse. The same chair he had sat in every morning of Clara's life. He was thinner than she remembered. His hands on the table looked older. But his eyes were clear. His voice, when he started speaking, was steady. "This is James Elijah Blackwood," he said. "I am recording this on March the 14th. I am of sound mind. I want that to be clear to anyone watching this." He looked directly at the camera. "My name is on this land. My father's name is on this land. And it belongs to my daughter, Clara May Blackwood. Not to my wife, Eleanor. Not to my son-in-law, Marcus. To Clara. Entirely to Clara." He paused, breathed slowly. "I have reason to believe that a document has been or will be created that says otherwise. I want it known that any will that does not name Clara as my sole heir is a forgery. I did not sign it. I did not agree to it. And I am telling the truth." He leaned forward slightly. "Marcus Delaney married my daughter, and I accepted him. I tried to see the good in him. But a man who schemes against a sick father-in-law is not a good man. And Eleanor," he stopped, pressed his lips together. "Eleanor knew what she married into. She knew this land was Clara's. She chose otherwise." He sat back. "Clara, baby, if you are watching this, I need you to know something. I need you to know that I saw you. Every early morning in that field. Every late night fixing what was broken. Every time you chose this land over something easier. I saw you." His voice got thicker. "This is your land. It is your inheritance. It is your name. Don't let anybody take your name from you." He looked at the camera one more time. "I love you, baby girl. Go get what's yours." The tape ended. The screen went to static. Clara sat on the stool in the barn, and she let herself cry. Just for a few minutes. Just in the dark with nobody watching, she let herself fall apart. Then she wiped her face with the back of her hand, wrapped the tape back in the blue handkerchief, and put it in her work bag. She carried it with her every single day after that. Marcus never noticed it. The morning of the auction, Clara woke up at 5. She made coffee. She sat at the kitchen table in the dark and she thought through everything one more time. Earl Miller. Ready. Patterson the lawyer. Ready. The tape. In her bag. The divorce papers. In her bag. Marcus came downstairs at 7 looking like he always looked. Sharp. Put together. Like today was just another day. Big day, he said, pouring himself coffee. Yes, it is, Clara said. He looked at her. Smiled. You doing okay? I know this is hard for you. I'm fine, she said. He nodded. Kissed her on top of the head the way you kiss someone you think can't see through you. He went upstairs to finish getting ready. Clara looked out the window at the fields. Go get what's yours. The auction was held in the main barn. They had cleaned it out and set up rows of chairs. There were people everywhere. Town council members in suits. The development company's lawyers with their briefcases. Local farmers who had heard about the sale and come to see. Neighbors who had known Clara's family for decades. People from the church. People from town. The barn was full. Eleanor sat at a table at the front in a cream-colored dress with her hair done up. She looked like she was at a garden party. Marcus stood beside her at the podium looking important. The lead developer was a heavy man in a gray suit named Gerald Webb. He had been trying to buy this land for 3 years. He was smiling the smile of a man who thinks he has already won. At the back of the barn, Earl Miller sat in the last row. He had his folder on his lap. He nodded at Clara when she walked in. Clara walked in through the side door. She was wearing a white button-down shirt and clean dark jeans. She had her hair down. She was carrying her work bag over one shoulder and a small television set under her arm. Behind her, a young man from her father's church was carrying the VCR. The room noticed her. People started turning in their chairs. Marcus looked up from the podium. His expression shifted, just for a moment, before he smoothed it back into something calm. Clara, he said. His voice was careful, gentle, the voice he used when he wanted to manage her. Sweetheart, this isn't a good time. Clara didn't look at him. She walked to the front of the barn and set the television on a hay bale. The young man set up the VCR beside it and connected the cables the way she had shown him. The room was completely quiet now. Eleanor stood up. What is she doing? She said to Marcus. Marcus stepped forward. He put his hand on Clara's arm. His voice dropped low. Clara, stop this right now. You are embarrassing yourself. Clara looked at his hand on her arm. She looked up at his face. Let go of me, Marcus, she said quietly. Something in her voice made him step back. Clara reached into her work bag. She took out the tape wrapped in her father's blue handkerchief. She unwrapped it carefully. She put it in the VCR. She pressed play. Her father's face appeared on the screen. The barn went silent the way a room goes silent when everyone stops breathing at the same time. This is James Elijah Blackwood, her father said from the television. I am recording this on March the 14th. I am of sound mind. People started leaning forward in their chairs. The town council member, a woman named Diane Harris who had known James Blackwood for 30 years, stood up slowly. This land belongs to my daughter, Clara May Blackwood. Not to my wife Eleanor. Not to my son-in-law Marcus. To Clara. Entirely to Clara. Someone in the crowd said, Lord have mercy, out loud. Gerald Webb, the developer, put down his pen. Any will that does not name Clara as my sole heir is a forgery. I did not sign it. I did not agree to it. Eleanor made a sound like something had hit her. She grabbed the edge of the table. Marcus's face had gone very still. The kind of still that isn't calm. The kind of still that is something breaking very slowly underneath. The tape kept playing. Clara baby, if you are watching this, I need you to know that I saw you. Every early morning in that field. Every late night fixing what was broken. Several people in the crowd were crying now. Old Joe Washington was standing along the wall with his hat in his hands and his eyes wet. This is your land. It is your inheritance. It is your name. Don't let anybody take your name from you. I love you, baby girl. Go get what's yours. The tape ended. The screen went to static. Nobody moved. Then Earl Miller stood up from the back row. His voice was loud and clear. My name is Earl Miller. I was a notary public in this county for 40 years. He walked slowly toward the front of the barn, his folder in his hand. 2 weeks before James Blackwood died, Marcus Delaney and Eleanor Voss brought a document to my office and asked me to notarize it. They told me James had prepared it himself. They told me he was too ill to come in person. He stopped in the middle of the room. What I notarized was a forged will. I know that now, and I am prepared to testify to it before any court in this state. The room erupted. Everyone talking at once. Chairs scraping. Phones coming out. Diane Harris, the town council member, was already on her phone. Gerald Webb's lawyer was whispering to him rapidly. Gerald Webb was shaking his head. Marcus moved fast. He stepped in front of Clara, and his voice dropped low and hard. The gentle husband voice was completely gone now. What was underneath it was something Clara had always suspected was there. "You think you're smart," he said. "You think this is over? I have lawyers." "I have." "You have nothing," Clara said. "I am your husband. Not for much longer." She reached into her work bag. She took out the manila envelope. She held it out to him. He looked at it. He didn't take it. "What is that?" he said. "Open it," she said. He snatched it from her hand. He tore it open. He looked at the papers inside. His face changed color. Divorce papers. Signed. Filed yesterday with the Fulton County clerk. "You," he started. "My father left me this land," Clara said. Her voice was steady. Not loud or angry. Steady the way a fence post is steady after 30 years in good ground. "He left it to me because I earned it. I worked on it. And it is mine. You married me because of what you thought you were going to get. And you got nothing." Marcus's jaw was working, but no words were coming out. "You can keep the ring," Clara said. "You can keep whatever you want from the house. But you need to be off this property by sundown." Behind him, Eleanor had not moved from the table. She was sitting very still in her cream-colored dress, looking suddenly very small. 2 sheriff's deputies had come in through the side door and were moving toward her slowly. Eleanor saw them coming. She looked across the room at Clara. For a moment, the 2 women just looked at each other. Clara had expected to feel angry. She had carried the anger for months. But standing here in her father's barn with the tape played and the truth out and the papers signed, she didn't feel angry. She felt like herself again. Eleanor looked away first. The deputies reached the table. One of them spoke to Eleanor quietly. Eleanor nodded. She picked up her purse. She stood up slowly. She walked toward the side door with her head down. People moved out of her way. At the door she stopped. She didn't turn around. She just stood there for a second. Then she walked out. Marcus was still standing in front of Clara holding the divorce papers. His face had lost all of its sharpness. He looked like a man who had been wearing a costume and someone had just pulled it off. "Clara," he said. His voice was different now. Smaller. "We can talk about this." "We can." "There is nothing to talk about, Marcus," she said. "Go." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he walked out of the barn. The sun was getting low by the time everyone had gone. The developers left. The lawyers left. The town council members stayed a little longer talking to Earl Miller and making calls. Diane Harris came and found Clara and shook her hand and said the county would be reviewing the deed situation within the week. She said she was sorry it had taken this long. She said James Blackwood was a good man and his daughter had done him proud today. Clara thanked her. When Diane left, it was quiet. Clara walked out the side door of the barn and stood in the yard. The field stretched out in front of her in the last of the evening light. Gold and green and red clay. 200 acres her grandfather had scratched out of nothing. Her father had made something. She would make something more. Old Joe came and stood beside her. He didn't say anything for a while. They just looked at the fields together. "Your daddy would have liked today," Joe finally said. "Yes, he would," Clara said. "That part where he said your name on that tape." Joe shook his head slowly. "I've been working this land 30 years, Miss Clara. I have never seen a barn go that quiet." Clara smiled. It was the first real smile in a long time. Joe put his hat back on his head. "I'll be here in the morning," he said. "Same as always." "Same as always," Clara said. He walked off toward his truck. Clara stood there alone as the sun went down over the Blackwood farm. The same porch light came on that her grandmother used to turn on every evening. The oak trees her grandmother planted moved a little in the evening breeze. It was all still here. It was all still hers. She reached into her bag and felt the blue handkerchief. She took it out and held it in her hand. Just held it. "This is your land. It is your inheritance. It is your name." "I know, Dad," she said quietly to the evening. "I know." If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below and tell us, what was the moment that hit you hardest? And where are you watching from? New York? Georgia? Texas? Maybe all the way from London or Johannesburg. I want to hear from you. See you in the next drama.